welcome back to another episode of All Things Ghostly. My name is Abbie, if I've never met you before. Welcome back if you're a listener. I'm excited for today's episode because we are doing another haunted location, and we're doing the Boston Commons today, and there's going to be some bonuses in here. I'm sorry, I think I just called it the Boston Commons. I'm pretty sure people call it Boston Common, the Boston Common. Anywho, so we're also going to be covering two of the cemeteries that are a part of the Boston Common, which is the Central Burying Grounds and the Granary Burying Grounds. I believe that's how it's pronounced. And then as another little bonus, we might be talking about one of the more prominent ghosts that I've heard about in the comment as well. So we are going to jump right in for the most part. You guys know I love to talk though. So how are you all doing? Today is a very exciting day for me because today is the day I am seeing Scream 6. I'm so freaking excited. I am not going on premiere night. This is filmed on like the 15th, I think it is, because I waited, because I am always that type of person to think of all of the worst things that could happen. And in my head, I'm like, we've all seen Scream 2. That's not happening to me, bitch, okay? So better safe than sorry. And that's all I have to say about that. But let me know if you guys have seen the movie. Let me know what you think about it. By the time this is posted, I will have already seen it. So no need to hold back on spoilers unless obviously it's for other people who haven't seen the movie yet. But let me know what you think if you want to like DM me on any of my socials, which if you want to, TikTok is my main like social for the platform or for the podcast, my main platform for the podcast. And the @ is just All Things Ghostly. So definitely like DM me on there or whatever. I also have an Instagram and it's at All Things Ghostly as well. Anywho, I usually do that at the end, but I want to know your guys' opinions. I'm excited to see it and like see my opinions on the movie. I definitely have a setup for the movie that I really want to happen, and if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be pissed off. So my expectations are very, very high, and if they are not met, I'm suing. Okay, I am suing. But anywho, so without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get on into it. All of the articles that I'm reading from will always be linked in the description of wherever you're watching or listening. Most of the articles from today is going to be by ghostcitytours.com. I absolutely love their articles when it comes to paranormal things. I think that they just go really well in depth. They show a lot of cool pictures. So definitely go look at these articles, even if you do listen to the podcast, because you'll be able to see like the cool photos and stuff that they include in the article as well. So yes, the first one is just going to be a basic, information, if you will, about the Boston Common. So this is just an overall general description of the haunts and the paranormal activity in the Boston Common. So the address of the park, if you want to know, is 139 Tremont Street or Tremont Street, I'm not sure, and it's obviously in Boston, Massachusetts. I really want to go here one day, obviously along with Salem and stuff as well, but I feel like Boston is definitely super iconic, and I feel like she's a paranormal location herself, okay? She might fool you, but I feel like this is a pretty haunted location, Boston is. So it says, the designation America's oldest park makes Boston Common seem as tame as a Sunday picnic. In reality, it could be the best place in Boston to experience a ghost. Criminals, accused witches, and pirates were publicly executed here for more than 100 years. Its dark history is mostly unknown to the sunbathers and dog walkers that fill the park today. Even now, a sense of lawlessness haunts the Common. Not only does this park carry a reputation as the most haunted in the city, but it also serves as a reminder of human nature's morbid curiosity with death. Then the article just has a little like did you know section with some fun facts. So it says British troops lived in the Common during the Revolutionary War. Crowds formed here to see George Washington, Martin Luther King Jr., Whitney Houston, and many other notables in the last 350 years. And then the land served as a major mass grave for criminals, poor, and sick. So definitely good material for some hauntings here. It's hard to find a place in Boston that has seen more history than the Common. The 350-year-old park is full of graves, ghosts, and gallows. It's impossible to know just how many bodies lay under the park in one big anonymous grave. Yeah, I mean, definitely. As a mass burying grounds, I mean, come on now. That is prime time for ghosts. Most buried here were poor, sick, killed in the battle, or murdered in front of a public mob. It comes as no surprise that people who use America's oldest park today will often get ghostly reminders of the park's dark history. Ooh, I want to go here. Like a little peaceful park and then just like a ghosty coming at ya. Love that. So this part of the article is going to talk about something called the Great Elm, and it was Boston Common's hanging tree for like witches and stuff. If you visit the Boston Common today, you'll find a small plaque on the southeast corner of the Frog Pond marking the former location of the Great Elm. The plaque celebrates the tree as where the Sons of Liberty assembled. It also happened to be Boston's most notorious hanging tree. When the Great Elm was used for public hangings, the victims were left to dangle from the branches for a prolonged period so the public would be sure to get the message. That same message may still be terrifying people today. I mean, it would terrify me. Visitors often report pale apparitions hanging from trees in the park. That would be so difficult to see. I feel like even more so than just your standard apparition, to see it hanging from the tree still. Crazy. Some say they can hear the sound of a rope creaking from a tree branch. Ugh. So sad. A windstorm brought the Great Elm down in 1876, probably for the best, let's be real. The tree is gone, but are its victims still lingering in the park, voicing the injustices of their death? I mean, I would, again, like, why did we hang people? This is inhumane. If there are ghosts, who are they? And then it goes into some of the ghosties that we have here in the park. The first ghost is called the Medicine Man Tantamous. It's Tantamous. So sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And I believe this was a man, and it says he was a Native American man. Some of the Great Elm's earliest victims were Native Americans captured during King Philip's War. As the population of English colonists grew, a bloody war began. Colonists would destroy a village, and Native Americans, it says Indians, but Native Americans would respond by burning down a settlement. Tantamus, a well-known Native American Nipmuc leader and spiritual healer, was a part of that war. Again, so sorry for any mispronunciations of names. There's just so many names in these articles that it's a little bit hard to fact check all of them and how they're pronounced, so sorry about that. Colonists ordered him and his family to Deer Island. There they whipped Tantamus for the rebellious speech he gave there. Fuck y'all, that's rude. That's more than rude. But Tantamus escaped Deer Island, but his son led to his demise. His son told the colonists where they could find his father under the promise no harm would come to him. No, you guys have to stick together. You cannot betray each other. The promise was broken. When colonists found Tantamus, he was marched down the street with a noose on his neck and hanged on the Great Elm. After he died, his family was sold into slavery. All told, 45 Native Americans were publicly executed by hanging on the Great Elm in 1676. Tantamus was said to be a medicine man with spiritual powers. Could he be using those powers to remind people of the nation's dark history? Tantamus's voice may have been heard. In 2020, Boston Common served as the starting point of a protest march by the United American Indians of New England for indigenous rights. Then we're going on to an accused Boston witch named Anne Goody Glover, which I've heard of this one. I'm assuming most of you have too. I feel like she's pretty famous in the old witch history world. It says Anne Goody Glover, a strong-willed Irish woman, worked for a wealthy family washing laundry in Boston. She had a sharp tongue that led to her undoing when she got into an argument with her boss's 13-year-old daughter. After the argument, the kids of the household began to act strangely. Naturally, Glover was accused of bewitching the children. Goody was locked up on suspicion of practicing the dark arts. Listen, if some kids are going to come at me, I'm going to argue with them too, okay? That does not make anybody a witch. It's just so sad how, like, women would breathe and literally get accused of witchcraft back in the day, and it's absolutely insane to think back to for me today. According to a 1684 piece written by Reverend Increase Mather called Remarkable Providences, an essay for the recording of illustrious providences, Goody primarily spoke in Gaelic, but her accusers demanded that she recite the Lord's Prayer in English. When she couldn't or wouldn't say the words, the government deemed it the mark of the witch, which is, again, crazy. Like, English is not going to be everybody's first language. Like, come on now. And also, not everybody has to know English. Think with your brain, people. She hanged on the Great Elm Tree in 1688, but before she died, she was reportedly heard arguing in her jail cell with the devil. Today, people report seeing a female wearing Puritan-era clothes, weeping and sometimes screaming in Boston Common. The nearby tobacco shop employee says he often hears the rattle of change in the early morning. Could it be Goody shackled and doomed to relive her last days forever? That would be such a tragic afterlife to, like, have to go through that every single day. And because, again, I feel like her death was unjustified. Like, I feel like she didn't do anything to the point where her life would have had to come to an end. And I feel like when it comes to, like, modern day death penalty, I still feel like I'm I very much so ride the line on that, because murder is murder, whether you do it legally, like, somebody has done something that justifies their death to you. Who are you to decide that? You know what I mean? But again, especially for this stuff, like arguing with kids and, just having a voice, being a person as a woman back then, definitely is not justified to kill somebody. Just saying. I feel like that's common knowledge, but it should have been common knowledge back then too. So another possible ghost in the Boston Common is a female pirate named Rachel Wall. She was executed, obviously, in the Boston Common. More than 100 years after Goody's hanging, a crowd of thousands gathered in the Boston Common to watch a female pirate named Rachel Wall die. With no TV or the internet, public hangings were a form of entertainment, which again is just a sick ass fucking fact about our history. Come on now. The case of a rare female pirate sentenced to death was a special treat. I feel nauseated by that. At the age of 16, Rachel met her husband, George. George convinced her to leave Pennsylvania for Boston to live a life of excitement. George was a fisherman and encouraged Rachel and their group of friends to run off and become pirates together. So it was his fault. It's always a man's fault. Come on now. The Bonnie and Clyde of their time, they successfully stole a ship and hatched a plan to use Rachel as bait. They disguised their boat to appear in distress after a storm. Rachel would cry for help. When a good Samaritan boat docked to help her, the pirates would jump aboard to rob and kill the unsuspecting shipmates. Okay, y'all are doing some fuckery now. Don't make me hate y'all too. The couple used that strategy to rob 12 ships and reportedly killed 24 sailors in just 2 years. George drowned in a shipwreck, leaving Rachel to continue her pirate ways as a widow. She'd already had a taste of a life of crime and wouldn't go back to being a maid. Eventually, she was caught and charged with several crimes. She admitted to piracy, but claimed to have never killed anyone. She was put to death swinging from the branches of the great elm. Rachel Wall was the last woman hung in Massachusetts. Is Rachel one of the ghostly apparitions swinging from the branches today? Perhaps it's her spirit lingering in the park that encourages thieves and robbers to prey on tourists and visitors in Boston Common on a dark night. See, that obviously, again, I'm not going to say that she necessarily deserved to die whatsoever, but that is definitely like a crime that would justify being like obviously locked away for many, many, many years, because that's not okay. But just arguing with a couple kids, come on now. They can take it. They got thick skin. Now we are going to talk about one of the burying grounds in the Boston Common, and we're going to go ahead and talk about the central burying ground. There are, I think, a total of like 4 burying grounds or cemeteries, whatever you want to call them, in the Boston Common. But the 2 that really stuck out to me were definitely, I said stuck out to me, was the central burying grounds and then the granary burying grounds. Again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing. It is what it is. We're all human at the end of the day. Public hangings ended in the Common in 1817, but it still served as a place for crowds to gather and ogle at the deceased nearly a decade later. For that reason, one of the most unsettling places in Boston Common is Central Burying Grounds. Popular legend says Boston Common Central Burial Grounds is incredibly haunted. Perhaps the paranormal activity is due to the disrespect shown to the bodies buried below. People who visit the cemetery say the air is thick with the feeling of despair. They sense they're being watched as shadows dance behind the gravestones. That is creepy. It's the sensation of being stuck in a crowded room, wanting to leave, but not being able to. That sounds very claustrophobic, actually. In 1895, Boston started work pioneering America's first subway system. If you find subway tunnels terrifying, you might opt to take the bus in Boston after learning what's buried in the walls. Oh gosh, I don't know that I want to know this. Visit Central Burying Ground Cemetery today, and you can see a gray headstone with the words, "Here were re-entered the remains of persons found under the Boylston Street Mall during the digging of the subway." Again, sorry for the mispronunciation. I feel like I have to say it every time just in case, because I don't like mispronouncing things, but again, there's just so many names. The grave is about the size of a single family headstone. Obviously, it's shocking to picture a pile of at least 1,000 bodies buried below. Yeah. When the project began, city leaders expected to find mostly empty tombs belonging to bodies that had been dug up and reburied elsewhere decades ago. But the tombs were far from empty. According to a Boston Post article from May of 1859, the work on the Commons is proceeding cautiously as new tombs are met at every step. Yesterday, there was gathered up a great box of bones. Among the heap were 7 skulls, one of them covered in long brown hair. Oh, literally, I think it's hair, teeth, and nails that never, like, fully go away, and that's just so creepy to me to think about, like, digging up a skull and then there just being hair still there. Gulp. Construction plows turned up dismembered bones in the dirt by the thousands. Word spread, and just as the news of executions brought crowds to the Boston Common, the chance to see dead bodies picked out of the dirt brought in as many crowds as a political rally. Which is, again, so gruesome, but I think, again, it's fairly known that we all kind of have this, like, morbid curiosity to us. We just have to know what we don't know already. So whereas I want to say it's, like, gross, I get it. You know what I mean? I do, unfortunately. Newspapers reported rumors of young men stealing some of the bones and auctioning them off for money. Okay, that's weird. Other residents were not as amused by the project. Many were concerned about the potential health hazards of a park full of decaying bodies. In an article in the Daily Advertiser, one person wrote, "Wherever the earth dredged up from the subway cribs have been spread over the ground, the trees have been sickened, some of them have died." Eventually, the city was forced to hang canvases around the project, so onlookers could no longer see the rotting bones tossed into big boxes. With no way to identify most of the remains, the city elected to bury them in a mass grave under a single headstone. So who did the remains belong to? It's believed they were American patriots killed in the battle, foreigners who died in the city, and the bodies of British redcoat soldiers who died of sickness or killed in combat. 3 years later, the city may have paid the price for disturbing the peace. A subway gas explosion at the intersection of Boylston and Tremont Street killed 6 people and injured 54 others. Wow, that's crazy. Included in the dead was the conductor G.D. Bigelow and Reverend Dr. Start, a well-known clergyman. Often subway passengers will hear the sounds of moaning and wailing during their daily commute. Some laugh that the spirits are simply angry, they're running late for work. While that could be the case, some of the apparitions in the tunnel suggest otherwise. According to Haunted Boston by Taryn Plum, a British soldier dressed in full redcoat attire and holding a musket has been seen on several occasions standing on the tracks. It's said the soldier only appears in the morning and serves as an initiation of sorts for new subway conductors. In the biography channel's Haunted Encounters Face to Face, the group of Paranormal Syndicate explored abandoned subway tracks near Boston Common. In the episode Boston's Haunted Underworld, investigators used specialized camera equipment and recording devices to monitor what would happen if they played sounds of explosions and people screaming to stir up raw emotions to victims of the gas explosions. The investigators claim all of their flashlight equipment immediately died. Wow, them ghosties are telling you something. When every piece of equipment starts failing, I know it sounds crazy, but what else can do that? And that was a quote by Daniel Hooven, which is the leader of Paranormal Syndicate. Haunted Boston also references spirits that linger above their graves in the cemetery itself. In the 1970s, a retired dentist, Jim McCabe, claimed that he encountered a young girl with an ashy and unhealthy complexion dressed in a dirty outfit as he was passing by the cemetery. Unnerved, he tried to turn away, but the apparition continued to appear immediately in front of him no matter which way he faced. He claims the girl continued to taunt him by removing his keys from his pocket. Despite a long relationship with death, Boston Common is also the site of celebration, love, and happiness. Concerts, speeches, and gatherings continue to happen there every day. The ghosts you might encounter at Boston Common may not be much different from you after all. Many say they've seen 2 women in Victorian-era dresses strolling pleasantly along with others enjoying the day. They are said to suddenly disappear if acknowledged by the living. Oh, they're just trying to have their little talk and walk. The Boston Common is visited by millions of people every year and is the setting for sports, protests, and large events. Sometimes called the People's Park, it has ice skating in the winter, tennis courts in the summer, and an outdoor theater. Rotating food trucks are located in the park from April through October. A frog pond with a nearby splash pad offers a cool retreat for families during the summer. The history of Boston Common makes it a year-round must-see for tourists and residents. Enjoy the great outdoors of America's park while appreciating the growth America has seen in 350 years and the sacrifices of those buried below. Aww. See, it's not all bad, guys. There's some happiness there too. So I did end up finding a little snippet from another article that describes another witch hanging in the central burying grounds. So I just wanted to include that really super quick. And it is Anne Hibbins. And it says Anne Hibbins was hung from the now fallen great elm, ironically planted for prosperity, in the common center for speaking her mind and disagreeing with the carpenter working on her house. They were hung from the same tree as pirates and murderers, they as in witches, like women accused of witchery, merely for being more outspoken than the men who ruled the city believed that they should be. Reverend Cotton Mather, who would later cement himself in Massachusetts history by participating in the Salem witch trials, had a hand in sending women like Anne to their deaths. So obviously we hate him, but that was just another little, I feel like Anne Hibbins is an iconic name that I've heard before, so I just wanted to include it. And this article does go a little bit more into detail about the ghosts, or more so like the deaths, I feel like, that happened in Central Burial Ground. But again, if you want to read the rest of the article, it'll be linked below. It's by verylocal.com. So again, we're just going to kind of skip over that and go straight to the ghosts of the Granary Burying Grounds. So this article is another one of the GhostCityTours.com articles. Again, love these. In a city known for its ghastly epidemics, massacres, wars, and witch hunts, it is no surprise that Boston, Massachusetts is plagued with troubled specters. Out of the many haunted locations to explore in Beantown, Granary Burying Grounds is among the most popular. With the eerie Victorian appeal and notable residents, the centuries-old cemetery is sure to produce some unexpected goosebumps. So this part of the article goes into a little bit of the history of Granary. The third oldest cemetery in the city, Granary Burying Ground, was established in 1660 after the predating King's Chapel Burying Ground reached full capacity. Once part of Boston Common, the oldest public park in America, South Burying Ground, as it was initially called, was occupied by free-range livestock. So I guess it used to be a part of Boston Common, but now it's not, apparently. But we're still going to include it because I think it's interesting. Its borders were framed by public structures and houses, with burials taking place in a small plot near the back of the park. In 1737, several decades after inception, South Burying Ground was renamed Granary after the adjacent grain storing building that stood. Oh my gosh, I just got a notification on my phone, and I don't know why, but I thought it was a ghost. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. But I kid you not, I saw the little notification come down, and I was like, it's a ghost on my screen, like standing behind me. I don't know. Anywho, we're gonna move on from that little fright. I don't even know where I was. It was renamed Granary after the adjacent grain storing building that stood where Park Street Church stands today. The park accepted new burials for over 200 years, with its last interment said to have taken place in 1880. Then it has like a section about Granary during the Victorian era, but it's not really about like anything haunted. It's just more so about like the history. So we're gonna skip that part. It is estimated that over 5,000 remains are buried in the cemetery, yet today less than half of the gravestones remain. In recent years, a hidden crypt has been discovered in Granary. According to a February 12, 2009 issue of the Boston Globe, a woman touring the graveyard fell through the ground into what appeared to be a stairway leading to an underground tomb. I'm sorry, but I would die on the spot. Like, no resurrecting me. I would absolutely die. Imagine walking through a graveyard somewhere that's already scary, like you already feel the vibes of death, and then you just fall through the ground to an underground tomb. I'm sorry. Is this woman alive? Is she okay? Have we checked on her recently? The large brick crypt is believed to have been built to store the remains of Boston Mayor Jonathan Armitage, who died in 1751. With this significant discovery, we can't help but wonder what other treasures lie hidden underground Granary's 300-year-old soil. Yeah, definitely. I'm still like, I feel as if I was that woman. Like, I have fallen through the ground. That's how I feel in this moment. So this section of the article is about some notable burials, and just to skim it quickly, Benjamin Franklin's parents are there, which is Josiah and Abbie Franklin. And then John Hancock, whose signature we can find on the Declaration of Independence, is also buried there. And then along with that, Samuel Adams and Robert Treat Paine, which they also signed the Declaration of Independence, are also there. It says, aside from harboring 3 of the nation's founding fathers, Granary contains the remains of several Revolutionary War patriots such as Paul Revere, and honors with an impressive grave marker the 1770 Boston Massacre victims. So then it has this whole section on like the headstone artistry and like what some things could mean. And I'm just gonna read this one part of it. It says, when strolling through Granary, keep an eye out for 2 carvings: the death's head, a skull paired with wings or crossbones, and the soul effigy, a winged cherub. Both motifs were popular during the 17th and 18th centuries and were meant to represent the soul's ascension to heaven. So now we have the exciting part, which is the ghostly residence of Granary. As a center of paranormal activity in Boston, Granary delivers spine-chilling encounters to many of its visitors. A second look at pictures snapped at night often reveals glowing orbs bobbing about and bright auras. There is no telling what kind of dark energies lurk in this cemetery's shadows, but there is one ghost that seems to always be present: James Otis Jr. After a prominent Boston lawyer, James Otis Jr., got a bottle broken over his head during a bar fight, his brain functions became extremely impaired, which in turn affected his mental health. Legend has it he wrote a letter to God amid his crippling depression, begging to be struck by lightning and killed. Oh, that's so sad. As if by fate, Otis was soon struck by lightning while at home, and he died instantly. Is this a joke? That is a little bit crazy, my friend. Be careful what you ask for. I mean, I've been told it my whole life, but be careful what you ask for. His remains were interred in Granary Burying Grounds, where he appears to visitors both by day and by night, dressed in his colonial-era threads. Just below the damp, bright green grass lie long decomposed remains of those who lived through some of the most gruesome times in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Visit Granary to witness firsthand how a still graveyard comes alive at night. Try not to be alarmed when you are suddenly overtaken by foreboding feelings, and avoid looking over your shoulder when the sensation of being watched strikes. Wow. Yeah, that is definitely creepy. I feel like Granary might be a little bit creepier than the Central Burying Ground. I'm not sure. Which one would you rather go to? Which one would scare you the least? I feel like they're both creepy in its own right, but they weren't even trying to hide the creepiness here. I'm just saying. So quickly, I'm going to read a little bit about someone named Mary Dyer, which is apparently a very popular ghost to haunt the Boston Common. And again, the whole article will be linked below if you want to know more about her history and stuff, but we don't quite have time to go fully in depth on her, but I do want to read the section of the article that details if she could possibly be haunting the Common. It says, Mary was not hanged in the Boston Common. For that reason, should we assume that the spirit occasionally seen weeping on the grounds of the Common is not hers? Not so fast. Mary's memorial statue sits just off the northeast corner of Boston Common. Memorials exist to make sure we don't forget our past, and the spirits of those memorialized are known to be seen around them. It's not outlandish to think that Mary Dyer's statue could act as a conduit between our world and the spirit world. And again, of course, like if you die and become a ghost and you know that there's a statue of yourself out there in the world, would you not want to go see it? Like, would you not want to be around that to show people, like, that's my physical form, but I'm also still here? Do you know what I mean? Again, it's a very public place, so I feel like if I were a ghost, I'd want to go to my own statue. So just to kind of clarify a little bit of who Mary Dyer was before we continue, she was a Puritan, and she was basically in some sort of protest for inhumane laws, and basically upon her arrest, they essentially said, you know, you're banished from this part of town, and if she ever came back, that she would be executed. And then unfortunately she did come back and was executed, and that's kind of how she died. And then now we're kind of going into like some theories on her apparition. It says in 1894, a writer for New York's weekly publication, The Independent, discussed what he claimed was a long-lost Boston legend, the White Witch of the Common. He told of an apparition that first appeared on June 1st, 1750, the 90th anniversary of Mary Dyer's death. The writer Henry Austen noted that the apparition spoke with a man of great talent who was being held back by drunkenness. He never revealed what the apparition had said to him, but it sobered him for life. Austen postulated that this inspiring spirit was none other than Mary Dyer. Henry Austen believed the White Witch of the Common to be an anniversary ghost. These are spirits that appear in the same location on a specific date, often the date of their death. He further suggested that it was Mary Dyer, since she was hanged on June 1st and the White Witch appeared on June 1st. Dyer is also looked upon as an inspirational figure today, so inspiring greatness would fit her character. However, we find this unlikely. Sightings of the weeping woman don't seem to be limited to the anniversary of Dyer's death, and no accounts mention the specter speaking to anyone. Still, we can't rule out the possibility that this was just one example of a very special appearance, the beginning of many paranormal experiences in the common. So that is all of the material that we have to talk about today on the lovely Boston Common and its paranormal side. I've never been here, but it sounds beautiful, and it definitely sounds beautifully haunted as well. I think Boston kind of does a ghost tour, probably at nighttime, which would be so fun. But yeah, let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you would go here. Let me know your favorite out of the burial grounds that we talked about today. And yeah, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed. I always say it 50 times at the end of each episode, but like I said in the beginning, feel free to follow my TikTok, which is at allthingsghostly. The Instagram is at allthingsghostly as well. And if you have a paranormal story, please submit it. You have two options, which are always linked in the description box or the show notes if you're listening to it. First option is to email me, and my email is allthingsghostlybusiness@gmail.com. You can put something in the subject line that says ghost story or personal encounter, something like that, so that I know. And then the second option is that I have a Reddit community page. It's just All Things Ghostly. Again, the link is right down below, so you can literally just click it and it'll take you there. And there you can publicly post your experience as well. And hopefully one day I'll be able to make a whole episode reading your guys' personal encounters. We don't quite have the stories to do so yet, but please contribute if you can. I'm so interested in hearing everybody's personal encounters. It's, again, my favorite thing to read when it comes to anything paranormal. I love looking into the history of stuff too, like this type of stuff, but I'm more so hearing from real people who lived through experiences with the paranormal. Not live through as if they'll die, but you know what I mean, who actually came face to face with a ghost and is telling their story. So anyway, that is all that I have for you guys today. Subscribe if you're on YouTube, and if not, I don't know what you can do on Spotify and all those listening places. I don't think, maybe you can follow, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a subscribe, I don't know. Anywho, make sure you keep coming back for these episodes. I have a couple more planned after this that are definitely striking my interest. I usually try to plan 2 to 3 episodes at a time, and the next 2 I'm definitely really excited about. So come back for those, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye, guys.